a lot of opinions from multiple sources that are not necessarily in line with a faith-based perspective.
As friends, we often chat about many current topics and relationship issues.
Lend your ear and peep into our private conversation.
Welcome to Realistic Conversations,
A platonic perspective with Kay and Ryan.
Going on, Kay?
Hey, stranger. How are you?
Oh, man, I am well. How are you doing?
I'm really, really good. The weather's warming up, so that's getting exciting. And I'm going outside these days. So, yeah.
I do not really care about your weather because our weather is cold and gloomy. So I really don't care about your weather.
Well, seasons change.
Yeah, listen, the winter hasn't been that bad. It's been a mild winter, but it's been raining. More rainy days and dreary days than cold, bright days. So I can't wait till it changes. You know me, get back into my bike riding, and it's gonna be better. It's gonna be better.
I
How you
agree.
doing?
It's been crazy, but like I say, showers of blessings, right? So I've been doing good. So what's going on?
Nah, I just call you to chop it up. You know, current events, things that happen in the social media, things that happen in the real life. So I'll call you to get your opinion on the situation where there was a leading lady and a man walking in the background with a, I don't want to say picnic, but with a child in his hand, and the uproar that was on social media. Did you see that?
I didn't see it, but a friend did call me about the uproar. And apparently, it's not a good look for men, and the men are not happy.
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of us as men feel that we are being attacked. But listening to my wife, she had a good, well, I'll say a valid point. She was like, she don't see the big deal that the cover was mainly about the main character, which was the female,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if the storyline was about the male, then maybe it would be in a different position. But the storyline was about the female, so that's why she was in the lead.
That's an interesting perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see the cover, but I would really argue that I don't know if I've seen a cover like that in years past. Even when there is a storyline about the main character, whether it be the man or the woman, I don't recall seeing where either spouse or partner was behind the person, side by side, maybe off to the side a little bit, but never behind the person. Whenever you see someone behind someone, it can give off the impression that the other person in front is the leader. And I think maybe that's where the challenge has been.
Yeah, I can see that. But let's say if the table was turned, because I do have a friend, he walks fast.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, he walks fast and his wife walks slow.
Mm-hmm. But is that going to be captured on the cover of a major magazine? No, it wouldn't be.
Yeah, but I'm saying, what if that was the situation?
That he just happened to be walking slow before they took the picture? Come
Yeah.
on now. No.
No. Seriously, because a lot of times we form opinions and we know controversy sells. So I'm not saying that there isn't a message behind it. I don't know what the motive was. I don't know what the intent was, but we know what the interpretation is.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, and art is subjective,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you speak to the artist, who's the photographer at this time, and then you have the
Mm-hmm.
editors and all that. Unless you speak to them and see what they were trying to capture, that's all subjective.
I agree, but perception is reality. And Hollywood, the industry, they don't do anything by mistake. And apparently, this is a conversation that's happening right now, right? So that's why it came up on social media. That's why you brought it up. But I think, again, I can't reflect back on a memory where I've seen a power couple and one person is a couple of steps behind the other.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some documentaries where it was similar, where the female was making more money and the male felt kind of slighted, or at least that's what the documentary said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, it was another African American couple,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you made a valid point because, and I never really thought about that.
About what?
When there's of other ethnicities, you don't really see those photographs.
I wasn't even thinking about other ethnicities. I was just talking about in general. I've never seen where once you're highlighting a couple, there is an intentional photograph of someone standing behind the other person. But to your point about the woman making more money and the man feeling slighted, that's why I got the call from another friend because he was sharing with me that he thought that it was ridiculous and that he also thought that a lot of women, once they're making more money than their male partners, they start to change roles in the relationship. So I asked him what he meant. So he shared how when he was in a relationship, the woman was making more. And so she felt like when it came to the major decisions about what they should be doing, then she would default to what she thought was best. And if he disagreed, her response was, well, I'm paying for it, so I get to make the final call. And
Wow.
so, yeah. And so I think that that's a challenge for some guys in what does leadership really mean in a partnership, right? Does that mean that you lead because you have more of the responsibilities of the bills? Or are you supposed to lead based on role and gender? And he said that he feels like a lot of times, because more women, you talked about ethnicities earlier, especially in our community, because a lot of times the Black woman is making more, we seem to be shifting into more of the leadership position in the home versus letting the man lead.
You know, and unfortunately, um, oof, it's a lot. Unfortunately, it's true, right? Because even from little girls growing up, you know, you're the princess, you're winning for your prince, charming, and then as you grow up as a teenager, and then you see, or you may experience bad relationship between either your parents, you know, aunties, uncles, and then you hear the chit chatter of Black women saying, you know, don't trust no man. I don't need a man. You gotta go and get a career so you can control the situation. And then now you're a full blown adult in a relationship and you happen to make more money than your spouse. And it's hard to get rid of all of that stuff you have heard from before, right? To me, leadership is not about how much you make. Leadership is about wisdom and understanding. Because you have some men who have the money and have the quote unquote leadership roles and make some dumb decisions. And then you have some women who quote unquote have they make good money and then they make some emotional decisions. So I don't necessarily think that who makes more money should lead or make the final decision. I really think that both people have to come together, make decisions that are best for the household and keep self out the equation. Because the moment you put self in the equation, that's where the problem comes in. Because now you're only making a decision based on you and you only, and you're not validating the other person's feelings. So this conversation is ironic because I was just listening to gospel station yesterday, and this lady called in and she said her husband bought a new car and never shared that he was going to buy a new car. She said that she knew it was a bad idea. She had that gut feeling, you know, you women and your gut feeling. She had a gut feeling it was a bad idea. And guess what? It was a bad idea because now they're in financial ruin. And he was like, I'm going to make the final decision. I'm going to buy a brand new car. And now they're in a bad financial space because of the decision he made. And that's a decision that he made selfishly.
So there's a couple of things that you said. I'm not going to remember it all, but I do want to
Yeah.
touch on some things. The first thing is the concept of the prince coming, right?
Hmm.
That whole Disney approach, it seemed like it was wrong, but I understand it because as women, we innately want to feel like our partners can take care of us, and we innately want to feel secure in a relationship, right? And
Hmm.
so the expectation is that we would partner with someone who has the abilities, like you said, the wisdom, the knowledge to make decisions that are going to be beneficial for the family and not based on their personal needs. So, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think that that's where that comes from. And then when unfortunately this the gap between the women going to school and men going to school and the educational gap became wider and wider, we saw where instead of our men being able to take care of us, especially if we were around the same age, we were pretty much taking care of the guy, guiding the guy, right? Especially college
Yeah.
age, because men mature, boys mature, men mature a little bit slower than women. That's just a scientific fact, right? So unless a woman is dating older, it's usually we're assisting with the progress and the growth of the man. So it's hard to get into position where now you're with someone and you can depend on them to lead when you haven't been depending on them to lead all along, especially if you're in a relationship when you're growing up together. But there is an
Hmm.
expectation that at some point, that person will seek the skills, develop the skills, look for wisdom so that he can put himself in position to lead and so that we can feel comfortable surrendering to, right? But then I look at the, I guess it would be late 80s, early 90s. I won't quote the singer, but one of my favorite songs was Me, Myself, and I is all I got in the end, is what I found out. I could be my own best friend, right? And that mentality shifted, I think, a lot of our need to depend on the other person, to depend on the male spouse, because if they're not showing up in the way we think they should, I got me. I'm okay. So now it's the struggle of can I allow him to lead? And what does leading look like? And so, in that wonderful example that you gave of being in a relationship with someone and making a decision about a major purchase does not make a woman feel comfortable at all. And I would argue to say that I'm sure he's done that multiple times in their relationship. It's probably just wasn't as big of a purchase. But one thing I believe in wholeheartedly is when it comes to spending money, that's a conversation, that's a discussion, that's an agreement of here's our max number of dollars that we will spend without a conversation. Anything over that, there has to be a seat at the table.
Yeah. As you was talking, right, the thought came to me, and I think I was telling Elena today too. I was like, it takes a lot to lead. That's not really an easy task. And I said, there's a difference. Well, in my opinion, right? There's a difference between a woman who is forced to lead because let's just say divorce, being single, death of her spouse, and she is because of these situations, she has to leave. And I was like, who wants that life?
Mm.
Right? Unfortunately, it's glorified in our community, but who really wants that life? Who wants to wake up every morning, get the 1 to 3, 4 kids up, drop them off at school, drop them off at the daycare, then you gotta work, then you gotta come home, then you gotta cook, then you gotta clean. Who wants that life? Nobody. So I remember years ago, I told a young lady, she's like, I don't need no man. I said, I get it. You don't need a man financially. But I said, can you imagine being a single mom and have to take your child to the hospital early in the morning all by yourself?
Too much.
It's too much. So when you are married, and unfortunately, there's some marriages where I told this guy one time, I say your wife have 3 kids. She got the 2 kids and you because you're afraid of responsibility. And some men are afraid of responsibility. I feel sorry for those women. And I say, unfortunately, sometimes, ladies, you choose these men, right? It's not necessarily your fault, but whatever your thought process was at that time, you decide to be with that person. And it is not easy, and it's a lot of work too, to be married to an adult. And then you have to raise them.
Mm. So you make a great point because unfortunately, we have a lot of grown men who are still boys, right? And then by virtue of them being just a male, they believe that a woman should relinquish control. They believe that they should be put in a position to lead and that we should follow. And so, again, I would hope that most women want to follow their spouse. I would hope that most women want to submit in the biblical definition of submission and allowing him to lead. But we have to also be honest. Are men prepared? Are they getting the wisdom and the knowledge to lead? Right. But even when that's not happening, the big issue that my friend brought to our attention was that their problem is now that the woman is making more money, they're not feeling that she's relinquishing leadership responsibilities to him all because of income. And I don't think that's the case. I think that they're attributing the relinquishing or the lack of relinquishing control because of income, but I don't think that's the case. I really think that with some of these relationships, it's we're not seeing. Remember, I talked about it in the whole fix my plate conversation. We're not seeing the characteristics
Yes.
and the fruit of leadership. So I'm not comfortable believing that you can manage the finances, dude. You buying cars and bringing them home without having a conversation. What?
Yeah. So all right. So here's the thing, and I agree with the point where sometimes some of us men may say, "Oh, now she's making more money. She doesn't want to relinquish the role," right? But really and truly, most women don't want to lead. Really and truly, most women don't want to lead. But if they are taking a step back and and I hate to use the word allowing, but if they're taking a step back and they're saying, okay, you lead, and men, we have to be honest. If we keep making selfish decisions, the woman cannot put trust in us. So she's going to take over because she's going to say, you know what? I got to take over because women think different, right? So us men, we're going to think short term. I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. But a lot of women plan for the future. So she's like, yo, if I continue allowing this dude to do this, we ain't gonna have no savings, we ain't gonna have this. And that's where now she's opened that separate bank account that we don't know about because now she has to prepare for the future. So and I do say this, right? A lot of times we as men, we would say that women when they're making more money, they want to rule. But if as a man, I was leading from the get-go, that money's not going to change her.
Absolutely. And
I do once again, I do believe that because the level of trust that she puts into me, the more money she make, she can be like, yo, I make more money. What do you think we should do with it?
it's not I make more money. It's we're making more money. And I think that's a major part of the issue too, right? Because if we really believe that marriage is a union and what's yours is mine and what's mine is yours, then we're doing better, hon. What should we be doing with this money? And sometimes I think the increase in the salary is really that man losing his respect for himself. And it's not right, wrong, or indifferent, right? But I think some of it, actually, I think a lot of it is subconscious, because just by virtue of you being a man doesn't mean you lose your leadership abilities and opportunities. Now, in fairness, there are some women who begin to disrespect their partner when they start making more money because they feel like, again, they're making the major decisions for the household because they're bringing in more income. And that's not fair. So if that balance and shift is now because a man is being and feeling disrespected, that is a big problem. But just to say that she's making more money and now she's feeling like she's leading, I think that's a cop out.
I believe in my heart, if a woman begins disrespecting her man when now that she's making more money, she never respected him in the first place. That's my true belief. Because I often say, you know, that how sometimes you will say, "Oh, now that person got that position, they change." I often tell people, "Nah, they never changed. They just got the position now, right? Because that's who they were before. Now they have the power. So the other part of them we never seen before now is coming out, right? So whenever a woman disrespect a man, now that she's making more money, she never respect you in the first place. Now she has the power. She's going to hold on to the power, and she's now going to have the courage to do what she always wanted to do.
I think I agree with that. And I think that would happen if the respect that she was giving her partner was based on income.
Yes.
Right? So if you had an expectation that a man is supposed to bring in X number of dollars and he's doing enough for you all right now and you're getting by, but then you're elevated to another, actually, that happened to someone I know. Then you're elevated to another level, then that means that you always equated your respect for your spouse based on what they're able to bring to the table financially. And it's funny because I actually know a couple where this guy was holding it down for them while they were in hard times, difficult days. And then she went and got her education. She started raising and getting higher up in the ranks at the job. The money started flowing. All of a sudden, he wasn't good enough. And
Yep.
I don't, this is a secondhand story, right? So I don't know
Mm.
if he wasn't good enough anymore because of the money, or if it became an issue because she expected them to grow together and he was fine and content with where he was. And that's a different issue too. But some men will equate that just to the money when it could be, hey, hon, we had these plans to grow together and I'm growing and you're not following and we're not moving into our vision together. But a man might say, oh, it's only about the fact that you're making more money. And it could be, we had this agreement and now we're no longer interested in the same things. We no longer have the same vision. I don't think that's grounds for divorce. I think that's grounds for counseling, but it did yield in a divorce.
And I've heard similar stories, right? So I've heard one guy from the Caribbean brought his wife up, worked 2 or 3 jobs, put her to school. She became a nurse, and she left him for a doctor. Listen, things happen. It's life, right? Um, some people, and poverty is a really, I want to say funny thing, but poverty really messes with the mind. Because sometimes when you come from a poor country and you come to America, there's so much opportunities, and now you have these opportunities, you take advantage, and now you became better than what you expected. All of a sudden, you see that change, right? And that's why I said that person never changed, just the opportunity is there. Now we see another part of that person. And that's why when God has said, God in his wisdom, he know what he's doing. Because a lot of us, when it comes, let's say for argument's sake, for tithing, you're like, you know what? If I was to make $200,000, I would do this and I would do that. No, you won't. Because now that you're making $2,000 a month, if you can't return your $200, you're not going to return $20,000.
Yeah, I always quote that scripture incorrectly, but it's basically if God can't trust you with the little, how can he trust you with much more?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So when a couple when a couple is struggling, and then even though you're struggling together, sometimes when you're struggling together and you sit down, you go over the budget, and you see, you know what, you have dreams. Let's do this, let's do that, let's do this together. And the way how life works, sometimes that dream may be sooner for one person. Both people are not going to exactly go the same trajectory at the same time. So it has to be, whereas the selflessness is still there to say, okay, my husband didn't catch up to me yet, or my wife didn't catch up with me yet, but I am still there to support you.
So, unfortunately, let's think about the top two reasons people get divorced: infidelity, money fights, and money problems.
Mm.
And so, what a lot of times does not happen is the conversation about what does the future look like for us, right? So, for example, I think I told you I had dated this guy when he told me that our first order of business was to get me a new car.
Yeah, yeah,
That's our first order of business, dude.
yeah. I remember you told me that. I was like, he don't know you.
He knew me, but he was convinced he was going to change what he knew. No, sir. That is not our first order of business when you have debt and we're building a house. Like, we have all these grandiose plans that cost
Mm-hmm.
money. How about we set our goals accordingly and phase this bad boy out? But no, perception was more important to him, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
there was no wiggle room there. He really believed in you have to look a certain way when you make a certain amount of money. I could care less about what other people think about the money that I have in my bank account that's not driving on the pavement. You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
thankfully, we had those conversations because if you can't get on the same page with that, and you can't get on the same page with how you see relationship. There are a lot of people who believe in open relationships and people don't know until they're in them. Like, oh, when we got married, this didn't just mean you and me. It meant you, me, and whoever I want to see every now and then on the side. Like, no, it's not okay. So yeah, it's sad, but I think that it's only an issue when you both don't understand your partnership in the relationship. So even though in how we started off with this guy standing in the background of this photo shoot, if they have an understanding of what their relationship is and they're fine with playing the parts and the roles that they discuss together, then it's all good. It's just like some men stay at home now and take care of the kids while the woman is the executive at the job, and that works for them and it's fine for them because some women know they can't handle both. And so they made the decision we're not paying for daycare. So since my income can cover us all, then we're just going to allow me to work for a couple of years until the kids get older. So it's having those conversations. What's our vision of marriage? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and all of that. Let's not pop up the car outside in the driveway and a new zone. No,
So this is not a Lexus commercial
this is not a Lexus commercial with
with a
a
red
big red
red
ribbon.
ribbon.
No, I actually don't like those commercials. Babes, you didn't buy me. You bought us debt. Now, if you're buying that with cash, oh, thank you,
That's different.
baby.
That's
Oh,
different.
baby. Thank you, honey. You know?
I mean, listen, and the thing is, I was just thinking as well, when a man is secure in himself, when a man is secure in himself, in his manhood, doesn't matter how much money your wife make. The money that she makes still does not take away who you are as a man.
I have a friend who says that he prefers his women to make more than
Word.
him.
I agree. I agree. I
He's fully
agree.
confident. And you want to know
Yes.
what? To be honest, as strong as independent as I am, when I meet a man, like you said, who is also very secure and strong and independent, I have no problems at all defaulting to his wisdom and his guidance because I'm seeing it play out in his life. But if you're here trying to instruct me on things to do and you calling me to borrow money at the same time, I might struggle with that.
Listen, I'm laughing because I always say there's levels of trust, right? You could trust a person, but then for a woman to trust a man where you know that he has your best interest at heart, no matter what. And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of committing to. Trusting that level that, listen, I married this woman and I'm going to trust my life with her.
And what did I say? Most women need and want security.
Yes.
And once we have security, the trust will follow.
Yep. Once they see a healthy pattern of trustworthy behavior, all of those barriers are going to go down. Right? So, in saying that, I am glad we was able to chop it up because all the hoopla I was hearing and the big discussion. And like I said, it's like art. Art is subjective. You see it one way, I see it another way. And the two people in the picture is living happily ever after.
And not talking about us. And one thing I will say, though, is my man's going to have to stand beside me.
Not behind you?
Not behind me. And I ain't standing behind him either. But thanks for calling. Great conversation, as always.
You want a Usain Bolt who can keep up with you?
Whoever, wherever, however, we like this. Lockstep.
All right, so enjoy your week and we can talk later.
All right, you too. Thanks for calling. Talk to you soon. All right, bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to this week's conversation.
If you like what you heard and want to listen to what we chat about next, please look for Realistic Conversation Podcast on all streaming platforms.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and peep into our next episode by clicking the subscribe button. See you soon.